Hello everybody, didn't see you there. Well anyways, Tim W. Rago here. Movies, games, vlogs, how the hell are you guys this afternoon? Now, for my next video, I'm going to be doing another top 10 list. Now, if you'll all remember, I did a top 10 list, I think a few months back, of other films like action movies, drama films, and a couple of comedies here and there if I remember right, but the reception for that video didn't really turn out so good. So for my next top 10 list, and this one will be staying up on the channel, this top 10 list is going to be my top 10 crossover films, and I'm not talking crossover films from the live action DC universe or the Marvel universe, because they're all in the, like I said, they're in their separate universes, and characters cross over constantly, despite each hero having his or her own solo movie, and then at one point a sequel comes, and then one hero crosses over with another. It just goes crazy. No, what I mean by the crossovers, I'm talking about the movies that were either unexpected or something that movie fans have been waiting for years, and then it finally happens. So, on with it now, these movies are based on my personal movie preferences. Like, all of these crossover films, all 10 of them, they're a lot of my favorites, but this is just like how I rate them by just what I'm into, really. So, yeah, on to the list. Alright, kicking it off at number 10, we have Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, this movie I sadly have not seen. I haven't seen this movie yet, but I have watched a couple of fight scenes on YouTube, and this movie looks awesome. I mean, it's the action and seriousness of Batman mixed with the humor of Ninja Turtles. What other blend could you possibly want? I mean, yeah, sure, in comic books I've seen, no joke, I've literally seen Batman take on aliens and Predator. Not kidding. If you ever look up Dark Horse Comics Batman, he has fought the aliens and the Predators before. But Ninja Turtles? That's an interesting choice. I was not expecting it when I first saw the trailer for this. I think this was 2017 or 18, I can't remember. But when I first saw the trailer for this, I was shocked. I was completely surprised, like, wait, what? Batman and Ninja Turtles? Really? It was just a complete surprise, and the animation does not look as good as the DC Animated Universe franchise, but it still looks like a really fun movie nonetheless. So I have not seen it yet, but I do plan on watching it soon. So I hope it's as good as mainly as the fight scenes I've seen are. But from the two fight scenes that I've seen on YouTube, I would definitely recommend this movie. I know that sounds weird. Haven't watched the movie yet, and yet I would recommend it to fans of Ninja Turtles and Batman, or just DC all in general. But hey, that's just me. The movie looks great, even though I haven't seen it completely yet. So, and the reason why that this movie is my number 10 is because I do like superheroes, don't get me wrong. Ninja Turtles, I will always love Ninja Turtles, especially the two live-action movies from 2014 and 2016. That, to me, is Ninja Turtles. Don't judge me on that. I know those movies are hated, but in the words of Baloo from Jungle Book 2016, please shut up. Those two movies will always be my favorite Ninja Turtle films. And Batman, I do love Batman. He's one of my top two DC heroes. But yeah, the reason why that this ranks as my number 10, like I was trying to say a couple minutes ago, almost a minute ago, was I love superheroes, but every other genre that I'm going to show in this list, I love more. So, yeah, go and check out Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Definitely recommend it, even though I haven't seen it all the way and I've only watched 2 fight scenes of this on YouTube. Okay, at number 9 we have the 40-minute TV special Ben 10 Generator Rex Heroes United. Now, the reason why that this is over Batman vs. TMNT is because I love science fiction and monsters a lot more than superheroes, and both Ben 10 and Generator Rex, they're the perfect blend of both. Both of them have sci-fi and monsters. I mean, Ben 10, a guy who can transform into 10 different aliens who fights aliens. I mean, seriously, what more could you ask for in that show? And then you got Generator Rex, a guy who gets infected with these little machine things called nanites, and he can turn parts of his body into pieces of machinery, and he and this organization by the government go around and they fight monsters. Seriously, both of these shows, I have been a huge fan of these shows. I think I've watched all of Generator Rex when it aired, and I haven't seen all of Ben 10 completely, which is sad, but I've been a huge fan of both shows, and the crossover Heroes United is awesome. The animation is just as good as, I would probably compare the animation to the DC Animated Universe Wonder Woman movie from 2009. The animation on both of these shows was great, and the crossover is even better. I mean, seriously, I would definitely recommend this to any just science fiction fans and fans of both shows. And also, if you want to watch something from the good old days of Cartoon Network, definitely check this crossover out. It's only 40 minutes. I think it was 40 or 42 minutes long, but it's well worth the watch. Very much so well worth the watch. Definitely check this one out. Kicking off at number 8, I know this is very odd for me to put a horror film on top of a science fiction film because I love science fiction more than horror, but for this movie I have to make an exception. Freddy vs. Jason. Now, I'm not big on horror. Like, this is why this is at number 8 at the bottom, because I really don't like horror movies. I mean, when it comes to horror, the only movie franchises of this genre that I'll watch is Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface. Other than that, no, I won't do horror movies at all. I've never really been a big horror fan. But Freddy vs. Jason, I really do like this movie, truly. This is why this falls at number 8 instead of number 9, because, or even number 10. Because the fight scenes in this movie are really funny to watch. I mean, especially the scene... Yes, there will be spoilers ahead in this video. Can't believe I did not mention that at the start of this. Anyways, the fight scenes, like I said, the fight scenes in this movie are just damn funny. Like, one fight scene where Freddy and Jason are fighting in the boiler room, which is like Freddy's friggin' trademark or some shit. You see Jason get thrown all over the place, and you hear pinball machine sounds. I mean, literally, you hear sounds of a pinball machine, and then you look at Freddy's fingers, and he's moving his fingers like he's playing pinball. It is so funny. And then these two guys just tear each other up. I mean, Freddy slashes at Jason with his claws, and then Jason just grabs Freddy and throws him all over the place and tries to hit him with his machete. And then there's even a funny scene during the final battle when Freddy tries to kick Jason in the nuts and he gets hurt. Oh my god, it is so funny. But one thing that I've always looked at was the fact that both of these franchises hinted at a crossover in the first place, and it was in one of the Friday the 13th movies where Jason's mask is in the dirt and the sand's the wind's blowing sand over it. But then frickin' Freddy's glove pops out of the ground and drags Jason's mask down into the ground. So it feels kind of random, but at the same time, it's like, oh my god, hinted a crossover. Well, this movie came out in 2004, so it's like, wow, had to wait that long for a crossover movie when it comes to fans of both of these franchises. Now, one thing I do really like about this movie is that it continues off of Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, the whole opening scene is Freddy talking about the entire movie franchise of Nightmare on Elm Street. And then he, like, says that he was looking through hell to continue his terror on Elm Street, but then he found Jason at, Camp Crystal Lake, and then the final battle takes place at Camp Crystal Lake. So I love that this movie, the violence is like typical like horror movie tropes, and it's in 2004, so it's like, oh, we all know this cliche and that cliche. But one thing though, like both franchises, the violence does not stop. It's Freddy and Jason. Come on. It's Freddy and Jason and it's horror. It's gonna have a lot of violence, a lot of blood, a lot of gore. So yeah, horror fans, I would definitely check this movie out. It's a fun movie. Listening to Freddy shit-talking everybody like he always does, and Jason beating the shit out of him. It's a fun movie to watch. Like I said, I'm not a real horror fan, but this I will watch. I will always watch this movie whenever I get the chance. It's fun. It's funny for a horror movie. Just go ahead and give it a watch. Okay, now this movie, Van Helsing, is not really a versus movie, but the reason why I'm including it on this list is because of the fact that it's made by Universal. This, like Freddy vs. Jason, this movie came out in 2004, and this movie is an amazing crossover because it takes Frankenstein's monster, or just the story of Frankenstein all in general, Dracula, and the Wolfman, and it throws it all into one movie. Oh, and then also you got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde too at the beginning of this. And then at an animated prequel called The London Assignment, where Hugh Jackman goes after Mr. Hyde. And also the beginning of this movie here, the very beginning of this, when Van Helsing meets Mr. Hyde, he goes, "I missed you in London," and Mr. Hyde goes, "No, you bloody did not." And he shows him this giant gunshot hole in his arm, and the London Assignment shows how Mr. Hyde got that hole in his arm from Van Helsing shooting him. But the effects in this movie, for 2004, the effects in this movie are very hit or miss. The CG, it's mainly the CGI in this movie. Like, it's really good in some places, but then in other shots, it's like, it's early 2000s CG, but the fact that it takes 4 of Universal's most classic movie monsters and throws it into one thing, and you have the character Van Helsing, who is well known for fighting Dracula, but the fact that he's played by Hugh Jackman, and looks like a complete badass in this movie is so worth watching. And just the monster action, this movie does not skip on the monster action. Throughout the whole movie there's monster action. I mean, you got Dracula and his 3 brides that turn into large bat monsters, and then you got werewolves. There's like 3 werewolves in this movie, including Van Helsing turning into one, which just looks awesome. And then you got the Frankenstein monster, who is played by a guy in a suit, which looks really good, actually, for 2004 makeup effects. And the CG overload, it's like, okay, that's fine. I'm more of a fan of CGI. I like practical effects when they're used well, but I love CGI a lot more. So I would definitely give this movie a watch. If anybody out there who is a fan of Dracula, the Wolfman, the classic Universal monsters from the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, definitely give this movie a watch. It's a fun time. There's, like I said, there's just a crap ton of monster action in this movie. And also, if you just want to see Hugh Jackman in a leather trench coat shooting at monsters, just go right ahead. Because seriously, oh my god, again I have to belch. I'm sorry, I have no control over that, folks. They just come up and they happen. They happen when they happen. So yeah, anyways, back to this. Yeah, definitely give Van Helsing a watch. It's a really fun time. Like Freddy vs. Jason, it's a fun time. The reason why this falls at my number 7 is because when it comes to the Universal monsters, I mean, the Frankenstein monster is a artificial dude. He's not really a monster. It's made out of people parts, so it's kind of odd why it's called a monster, but I guess it's the way it looks is why it's a monster. And then you've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde is basically just I guess he's basically a giant dude that looks like a monster. He just looks like a monster. Oh, and also the fact that Mr. Hyde talks in this movie, he's just a shit talker. It's a funny scene at the beginning, the fight between Van Helsing and Mr. Hyde. The movie gets right to the point very quickly. And then you got the werewolves. Now, the werewolves, when it comes to vampires and werewolves, I always choose werewolves because people that turn into monsters, I always like that. I love that, actually. Vampires just look, mainly they just look a little too human sometimes. But this movie makes me love vampires a little bit more because they turn into large bat monsters. I mean, seriously, especially Dracula. Dracula's bat monster is just, oh my god, how can you not enjoy watching this? So, yeah, the reason why this falls in my number 7 is because they're basic creatures that they all just look like humans until they turn into something. Or they look like something. So yeah, that's why this falls on my number 7. But they take the term monster a lot serious in this movie and make them actual monsters. So I know it sounds confusing, but it's like that's just what I think of this movie. But any fan of the classic Universal monsters and any Hugh Jackman fan overall, definitely check this movie out. Because the whole movie just kicks. Coming in at number 6, we have some more science fiction your way. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. Now, this movie, okay, I love Alien and Predator. I love both franchises separately, but the reason why that the sequel to Alien vs. Predator falls at my number 6 is because there's a few cons with this movie that they clearly show, and you look at this movie and think, why did Hollywood devolve these two very, very iconic science fiction monsters to this level? Now, starting with the cons, number 1, it's too dark. The movie's really dark. And I'm not talking like dark in tone. I mean, when you watch this movie, it's like you would have to watch the movie in a completely dark room to see what's happening. Now, even in daylight, I see what's happening, but there are some points in this movie where it's like, I can't freaking see. So, it's the darkness of the movie that is a con, because it's like, why is it like, it makes you want to turn the brightness up on your TV, really. And actually, I saw this on and the dark attribute, sorry, I'm not working off a script, so I'm just doing this off the cuff here with me talking. Anyways, I saw on Clayton Fioridi's channel when he did a review of all of the Alien films. And when he did this movie, he showed this behind the scenes footage at the very start of his video, where it was the camera guy is showing off the Pred Alien suit, which is the Pred Alien hybrid between Alien and Predator, which looks really badass. But you hear in the background, like, you hear the main camera guy say, "Oh, hey, I'm getting some really, really dark images," and then you hear, "Shut up, Dave!" Like, wow. I think that was the director that said that. But wow, like, the director didn't even listen to the cameraman when he said that the images looked too dark. Maybe the director should have listened. I mean, you see the picture I'm showing here, and which, like a bunch of other photos, it's like the other photos it's brightly lit, it's amazing, but then when you watch the movie, it's dark, and you gotta watch this movie in a dark room to see what's happening. It's kind of sad though that that happened. And then the other con with this movie is that Alien and Predator are both science fiction monsters, and this movie has the science fiction-y thing, but it's at the beginning, and then like maybe a few times during this movie. I mean, this movie feels more like a Hollywood slasher flick. It feels like a Hollywood horror slasher. Like, seriously, people getting killed left and right, teenagers dealing with bullying issues and sex and bullying. Like, Alien and Predator get into that. Like, okay, I understand that they wanted to up the ante on this film and take it more serious, raise the stakes, but they could have, I mean, I may love movies for how they are, and I pick who I like, and then who I don't like, I hope die, and then I pay attention to the backstories that they give the human characters and all. I understand that. I understand all that, but, but I am saying this right now, they could have done a little bit better they could have just done a little bit better with this movie. I mean, seriously, they could have done just a little better. Not make it a horror slasher movie, but kept the science fiction throughout the whole movie, which is what Alien and Predator are known for. Now, for the pros of this movie. Number one are the suits. I mean, there is some CG, of course. It's 2007. CGI is a big thing. But the suits are amazing. The Predator suit looks awesome, and then you have the aliens, which are clearly inspired by the xenomorphs. Sorry, I keep calling them aliens because that's the name of the movie, that's the name of the films, so I always call them aliens. Xenomorphs, sorry. The xenomorph suits are clearly inspired by aliens, which is awesome, and this movie brings what you love about Alien and Predator. Predator skins a body, except it was a cop, and Predator skins him and hangs him upside down in a tree, and then with the aliens, you got the face huggers and the chest busting is everywhere. Oh my god, there's plenty of alien tropes with the face hugging and the chest busting. It is everywhere in this movie. And then with Predator, you have him using the plasma casters, which are the two guns you see there on the shoulders, and then you've got the you just have everything you love about both of these monsters are just put in a blender, like the movie before this. And then there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of action scenes between Wolf Predator and the aliens, and then you got the humans shooting at the aliens too. There's just a lot of good monster action in this movie, but the cons are obvious, and it's like, that's the reason. The cons is why this movie falls at number 6. Now, recommendations. I would recommend this movie to I do recommend this to only fans of Alien and Predator, that's it. I mean, this movie gets trashed on a lot, but if you watch the movie a couple of times, the monster action really makes it well worth it, and then the human characters they're actually relatable, especially the main human character who gets bullied a lot and is trying to get this one girl that he is majorly in love with and deals with, dumbass people. So it's like sometimes the human characters are relatable. They're really cliche, but that's what makes them relatable. So yeah, I would only recommend this to Alien and Predator fans. That's it. There's really no, I don't really recommend, or nah, just fans of Alien and Predator. Just those two groups of people. Just that group of people. There ain't nobody else I can really recommend this movie to. Okay, coming in at number 5, we have the first Alien vs. Predator. Now, this movie is better than its sequel in terms of it's more lit. Number 1, it's more brightly lit. The entire plot is science fiction, and also, this was the first movie that really blends Alien and Predator together in one movie. I mean, in Predator 2, like the scene that I mentioned when I was talking about Freddy versus Jason, like that hint at a crossover scene in Freddy versus one of the Friday the 13th films, Predator 2 had a scene like that. Like Predator 2 already established that that the xenomorphs and the predators were in the same cinematic universe, because in Predator 2 there's a shot where you see an alien skull in the Predator ship at the end of the movie, at the end of that movie. So, yeah, both of these creatures were already in the same cinematic universe right from there. And there's a lot of monster action. Like its sequel, there's a lot of monster action in this. The suits are amazing. And they were done by Alec Gillies and Tom Woodruff Jr., who also worked on the sequel, AVP Requiem. But this movie is, the whole plot is science fiction, and it's more brightly lit, and there's no bullying teenage horror cliches in this movie. The only con that I do have with this movie is that predators, because there's 3 of them in this movie, they do, when they kill people, they of course do the hanging them upside down, but they don't skin them. I mean, I guess because this movie takes place in the Arctic or something like that. Like, this movie's rated PG-13 when both movies are rated R. I mean, both movies respectively of Alien and Predator have a lot of, they're all not all of them, but a lot of them actually. They're like horror films. So there's a lot of blood and gore, but this movie has gore, but barely any blood in the movie. I mean, that's the whole reason why you'd watch these films, isn't it? So, yeah. I mean, that's why this movie falls my number 5. But still, it's a better movie than the sequel. I know it's weird for me to say that, but that's really how I feel about this movie. And also, the science fiction-y plot of this, which both Alien and Predator are in the first place, it sticks to anybody ever read the Eric von Daniken book, Chariots of the Gods, and I would definitely recommend that book to anybody who loves to read, including myself. Like myself, anybody who loves to read, definitely read Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods. It explains that a lot of ancient civilizations had, and even in the Bible, and I'm not kidding about this, the book explains in great detail that the Bible, a lot of things said in the Bible and all the ancient civilizations on Earth had extraterrestrial involvement, and when you really look at it, it's kind of obvious. Kinda. And this movie really sticks to that, where they have the backstory with thousands of years ago, the Predators taught humans how to build pyramids. So the director, Paul Anderson, director of the really awesome Resident Evil franchise, as well as the upcoming Monster Hunter movie based on the Capcom game franchise, which I really can't wait to see when it comes out. It's still coming out this year, so here's to hoping it's still going to come out this year. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. I sort of got off topic. Anyways, yeah, Paul Anderson was really inspired by Chariots of the Gods to make this movie because, like I said, they show the flashback scene of the Predators helping humans how to build, and they build this pyramid, as like a hunting ground for the predators to come every 100 years, and they come down, they fight aliens in a hunting ritual. I mean, it's a very simple plot, but the science fiction part is what makes this movie really well worth watching. So, I would definitely recommend this movie to not only fans of Alien and Predator, but to science fiction enthusiasts overall. But yeah, the PG-13 rating is why this movie falls at my number 5, in all honesty. Like, it sticks with both trademarks of Alien and Predator, but the PG-13 rating is kind of like, why did they have to make a PG-13 when both of these creatures are supposed to be really scary? Okay, now coming in at number 4, we have Boa vs. Python, also from the year 2004, like Freddy vs. Jason and the first Alien vs. Predator film. Now, the reason why... Now, I did state at the beginning of this video that I love monster movies more than science fiction films. Like, yeah, monster movies do fall under the category of science fiction, but I like just regular monster movies just overall more than science fiction movies. Now, Boa vs. Python, yes, it is one of those B movies where the CGI is very it's very hit or miss in this movie. Like, it's definitely one of those hour-and-a-half B movies, you know, like made for TV films, like from sci-fi or whatever the hell. But the reason why that I really like this movie is because it takes two of, well, mainly this movie continues the Python story of the giant snake universe, which includes Python, Boa, and Python 2. I mean, this movie really carries more of the Python story, and Boa, well, the weird thing is about this is that, yes, this is the official crossover between the Boa and Python movies, but what's really odd is that in Boa, the Boa film, the creature was, the giant snake was a giant prehistoric snake, and in this movie, in the crossover here, the Boa is a giant lab experiment. They don't really go into detail the Boa's origins in this movie. I mean, it's a giant female named Betty. Yeah, no joke. That's literally the snake's name. They don't really go into Betty's origins all that much. They just have, like, this big sciencey explanation on... They don't really explain why the Scarlet Boa is so big, but it's not prehistoric, which is really odd. But the Python, on the other hand, this movie definitely continues off of both films. Like, the Python is from Southeast Asia, like it was in the first movie, and like it was in the very first Python film, and then you got Python 2, which this movie mentions Python 2, like it was part of a Russian experiment or some shit like that, and experiment gone bad and then had some problems in Russia. So this movie does do a good job of carrying the Python story. And the giant snake scenes are really fun to watch. I mean, yeah, the CG is very, like I said, it's very, I mean, for 2004, it is very obvious. Like, I would compare this film to Atlantic Rim, actually. But yeah, this movie is just one of those hour and a half movies that you can sit and watch on like a weekend or something before you go hang out with your buddies or whatever. Just get your fix of good monster action. And the snakes they only fight one time in this movie, which is interesting. Well, no, they fight twice, like such in the screenshot here. Like, they just got done fighting, and then the Python eats the Boa's snakes, eats Betty's eggs or something like that. So, sorry, that sounded confusing. But yeah, the reason why this movie falls at my number 4 is because I love giant reptile movies. So, yeah. It's a really fun movie, and I'm a fan of these kinds of films. So, yeah. I mean, the plot really is very simple. It's like the Python gets brought over from Southeast Asia to be in a big game hunt, but of course the Python escapes and starts eating people, and then the FBI goes to the scientist and releases Betty to fight the python. Like, seriously, you want to fight a monster? Go grab another monster. Seriously. I mean, the plot is very straightforward, but still, then when you watch it, it's like, there's characters you like, characters you don't like. So, yeah. I would definitely recommend this movie to fans of just mainly fans of monster films. There's really not much else I can say about this movie, in all honesty. And, well, the last thing I gotta say is, I love the fact that this movie finally differs the characters of the main two stars of this movie, the boa and the python. Because when you watch the python and boa films, their solo films, when you watch them separately, the snakes look very much alike. Like the the designs of the snakes look very much alike, and then in Boa they use stock footage at one point of the first Python movie. But I love the fact that this movie makes both characters look different, and they give them different colors. So that's really one of the biggest pros in this movie. And, well, actually, the last thing I gotta say is the fight scene at the end is awesome. The snakes just throw each other around, they bite at each other, and they rip one of the main human characters, who's just this big game asshole. They rip him in half, Jurassic Park style. It's like, yeah, definitely, monster fans, definitely give this movie a watch. I mean, the movie is not one of the best monster movies out there, but it's a definite fun watch overall. Kicking it at number 3, we have Lake Placid versus Anaconda. Now, this movie was completely unexpected. I mean, thanks to sci-fi, Lake Placid has 5 films and Anaconda has 4. But this crossover was just wow, so now there's an actual crossover between both movies. Now, it clearly, by the screenshot, Lake Placid, anybody knows their monster movies. Lake Placid is a movie franchise about giant crocodiles in this lake that terrorize a lot of people, and this family, the Bickerman family, has connections with the crocodiles. And then you got the Anaconda films, which is like the first Anaconda is like it's totally its own separate thing, and then from the second movie, Hunt for the Blood Orchid, to this movie Lake Placid versus Anaconda, is like it continues the story of the Blood Orchid and the medical research that they were trying to do, but the giant snakes just accidentally get released into the lake that the crocodiles are in from Lake Placid, and then comes like both monsters start killing people, and then you got the giant snakes and crocodiles fighting each other. So yeah, the plot, it continues both movies in one thing. Very much kind of like Freddy vs. Jason, actually. So yeah, and the CGI in this movie, the CG for the snakes is very I mean, you can tell by the screenshot here that the crocodiles, though not the best CGI ever, they actually look decent in this movie. Like, the CGI in this movie, surprisingly, is actually decent. And the fact that it takes both stories of Lake Placid and Anaconda and just throws it into one blender here, like, what other better way could you do it other than this movie? So, yeah, I would definitely give this movie a recommendation. My recommendation for this movie, mainly just monster fans. If you're into either you're a monster movie fan, or you're a fan of the Sci-Fi Channel and their B-movies, or you just like watching movies with giant reptiles in them, like myself. My fan love, it fits in all 3 of them categories, as seen a lot of times on my channel. So yeah, Lake Placid vs. Anaconda. It's a really crazy movie, but the monster action when they fight is insane, and I can't believe Anaconda wins. I'm spoiling that right now, because when you look at both of these creatures, it's like, okay, Anaconda can coil around crocodiles, but crocodiles have a much stronger jaw power, and they're strong. Like, a crocodile is stronger than a snake, but I can't believe Anaconda wins. One Anaconda uses, there's multiple crocs and multiple snakes in this movie. Like, one of the anacondas snaps one of the crocs in half with its tail, killing it, and then the final crocodile in this movie gets strangled to death and gets ripped open by the snake. So I can't believe Anaconda wins. I was really hoping Lake Placid would win when I first saw this movie the first 3 times. So yeah, like I said, the 3 categories that I mentioned when it comes to fans of monster movies, definitely check this movie out. It's it's a fun movie. It's like Bull vs. Python. It's just a fun movie to watch. If you're bored and you just want your fix of monster, get your monster movie fix for a little bit. So yeah, definitely check this movie out for mainly that purpose. Okay, now at number 2 is my all-time favorite. I mean, my always will be my number 1 favorite B-monster movie from the Sci-Fi Channel, Dino Croc vs. Super Gator from the year 2010. I will always love this movie. I mean, I know Lake Placid vs. Anaconda and Bull vs. Python, both of those films are movies about giant reptiles fighting, but this movie, I don't know, I can't put it into words. This movie will always be my number 1 favorite, mainly because of the heavy cliches that it plays on, like the characters that try to act badass and genetic engineering on bat. Excuse me. Anyway, I mean, this movie always grabs my attention every time I watch it. And I love the fact that this movie is like an official crossover between Dino Croc and Super Gator. And one thing that you gotta notice right away, just from the screenshot alone, or those who have seen this movie, is the designs of both monsters. Like, when you look at Dino Croc and Super Gator separately, their designs are, I guess you can say they are a little bit better than the designs in this movie. I mean, Dino Croc had large ridges on his back, and he looked more fearsome and scary, and Super Gator was the same way, except Super Gator, Dino Croc came out in 2004, and then Super Gator came out in 2007, and Super Gator looked like Dino Croc just on all fours, which is really interesting. Like, the designs looked very, very similar to each other, but both of those movies separately, the designs looked scary, and they were more heavily scaled. I don't know, it's just both of those movies, they're awesome, don't get me wrong, they're really well worth the watch, especially Dino Croc. And then you got the official crossover, and when you look at both of these creatures, it's like, they explain in the movie that these were normal creatures, like that was a normal alligator and that was a normal crocodile, but the name Dino Croc, they had to make the crocodile look like a dinosaur. And then Super Gator is just a big alligator with giant spines on its back. So yeah, the fight is very brief. It's a very, very short battle at the end of the movie, and they actually add punching sounds. They actually have punching sounds to both of these creatures. I don't know, this movie will always be my number 1 movie of giant reptiles, or just B movies all in general. I don't know why. I like this movie. Actually, no, I can't say I like this movie more than Reptilian. I can't say that, but this will always be my number 1 B movie all in general. Or my number 1 B movie from Sci-Fi, from the Sci-Fi Channel anyway. So yeah, I would definitely, my recommendations, if you just like movies of large reptiles, give this movie a watch, in all honesty. The human characters are very cliche, and there's a lot of monster action in this movie. In an hour and a half, there's literally 6.5 minutes of the monsters. So yeah, So I would give this movie a watch if, I mean, just treat this movie like what I said about Bull versus Python and Lake Placid versus Anaconda. And the CGI in this movie, the CG for Sci-Fi Channel, the CGI is actually good. It's actually pretty good for a movie from Sci-Fi. In all perfect, no joke, the CGI in this movie is actually pretty good for this kind of film. All right. So then we have my number one spot. Can't wait to say it. Alright, kicking it off in my number one spot of my favorite crossover films, King Kong vs. Godzilla. I mean, I know that when, if you guys watch my Godzilla Effects series, this is number 7 on my favorite Godzilla movies, mainly because of how dated the special effects are. I mean, the special effects in this movie are amazing for 1962, but it's the cheesiness sometimes shows, so that's why this is my number 7 on my favorite Godzilla movies, but it's number 1 on my favorite crossover list because, sorry about that, that was my alarm going off. The reason why that this is on my favorite list of crossover films is it's obvious. It's King Kong and Godzilla. Why? How can you not love this movie? I mean, especially now because of the MonsterVerse. I mean, how can you not love the original movie that started the that was the inspiration for the MonsterVerse in the first place? I mean, yeah, I know that this original movie, they had no reason for Kong and Godzilla to be in a movie together, but holy shit, is this movie amazing to watch. It's really cool to watch. Just seeing, it's King Kong and Godzilla, two of cinema history's biggest icons. I mean, seriously, how can you not love this movie? I mean, fans of King Kong, fans of monster movies, and fans of Godzilla, definitely I will always recommend this movie to fans if you fit in all three of them categories. So, yeah, I mean, definitely anyone should give this movie a watch. If you're a fan of old cheesy monster films, you know, definitely watch this. I mean, like I said, it's King Kong and Godzilla. How can you not like this movie? And the effects in this movie are, like I said, for 1962, the effects in this movie are really good. Really great special effects for the time. Like, the miniature sets are really well detailed. Lots of monster action throughout the movie. And also, the fact that one of the monsters was a real animal. I mean, yeah, it was blended with a puppet, but for the most part, they used a real animal. And from what I'm talking about, it's the giant octopus. I mean, they used 3 live octopi for this movie. I mean, yeah, when Kong fights it, it's a puppet. But by itself, it's a real octopus that they just green screen to make it look big. But yeah, like, that's a big plus for the special effects. And the fight scenes between Godzilla and Kong are just so fun to watch. Yeah, this movie definitely is my number 1 crossover film. Always give this movie, I will forever adore this movie for me being a fan of both monsters in their respective movie franchises. So, yeah. I hope all monster fans, if you have not seen this, any new generation monster fans in the year 2020 have not watched this movie, definitely needs to watch this movie. All the movies that I've just mentioned, I do need to give one honorable mention. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman from, I want to say, I can't remember what year it was made, but that's one versus movie that I actually did forget to put on this list, so I'm having it on as an honorable mention. I mean, it's Frankenstein's monster fighting the Wolfman. What more would you want? I mean, the only part that I've seen of it was the final fight scene on YouTube, and it's actually a good fight for a 1940s monster movie, and the fact that it's Frankenstein's monster and the Wolfman. I mean, seriously, there's not much big budget explosions and stuff happening. So, Yeah, from the fight, the movie looks good. I haven't seen it anywhere. Is there anywhere that I can at least get a copy of it, because I haven't been able to find it on DVD nowhere. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my top 10 list, and if you agree, like if you agree, dislike if you disagree. Simple as that. And please subscribe to not only this channel, but to the Movie Reviews library. Link will be down there. See it? See that big white section there? You see all that down there? You know, that big empty section? The description, you know? The link will be, well, not empty, but the link will be down there. See it? And please hit that bell right here next to the subscribe. Please hit that bell so you'll get notified of any of my future content. Alright, this is Tim W. Rago, and I will say, see you in the next video, everybody.